Okay, let's share. Telegram. And we're back. We're notifying viewers that you're live, says TikTok. Hello to everybody joining me. Yeah, this is going to be an episode of Politicooking. I did a couple of live streams like this in November and people seem to like them. So I'm bringing them back. And I might actually put this on a separate channel. We'll see how it goes, you know. Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why I'm doing this way tonight. First of all, I needed to cook tonight. I needed to do a batch of meals. I like to cook in bulk and then freeze wherever I can. Because it's really easy to do, it's cheap to do, it's healthy, and it's fast once you've actually got the original, the first cook done. What I'm going to be cooking tonight is a big batch of chili. Now, I've done this before, you may remember, if you've seen my other live streams back in November. But I'm going to do a big batch of chili tonight. Now, this chili, it'll probably be about 10 portions, maybe 12. We'll see how many there's going to be. And it takes about 2 hours to do originally, but then you just freeze it and you can microwave it. It takes 5-10 minutes then. And you can have it with, whatever you want. Cheese on top, garlic bread with cheese, chips. You can have it with rice. You can have it with whatever you want. And it's a staple of my I eat it twice a week. It's that nice, and it's really, really nice. It's really tasty. So I'm going to show you how to do that tonight. I'm also, I'll cook some chips in the air fryer to go along with it. And I've got to prepare my Gordo's chicken tonight. And the reason I'm doing all this, by the way, is I'm going back down to London on Friday to cover the night carnival for Assange. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And I've got to do a batch, I've got some food I've got to basically eat and put away in the freezer so it doesn't go off while I'm down there, So yeah, and while I do that, I've had nothing to eat at all tonight, so I've got some bean sprouts that I want to use up in the fridge. So we're going to be using those to do a chili garlic noodle sort of meal that I've been experimenting with, and that's what we're going to do today. And while we do it, we're going to talk about news and politics because that's what I do, and I'm going to combine two things that I love doing, and hopefully for anybody who does do what I used to do, and that's eat a lot of takeaways, etc., hopefully you'll be inspired to start doing this. I used to eat a lot of takeaways, I really did. 3-4 years ago, just before the pandemic really, I would eat a lot of takeaways, but obviously nobody's got any money anymore, and it's really bad for you. I've got healthy since lockdown, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do tonight, and hopefully inspire some of you to do the same. Let's just say a quick hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to everybody making comments and whatever. You can share it and like the stream. That would be great. It really does help the algorithm. So hello to everybody joining in the chat, and there's quite a few of you. That's great. So I'm going to get on with it. This is my chili. It's a variation of a local boy to me, Mills by Mitch. You may follow him on TikTok. It's a variation. He does a great chili that I cooked and then just added my own stuff and just cook it in a different way. So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. If you actually want, to follow an actual chef's version of it, then go to Mills by Mitch and see his Chilli-con-carne. But we're going to start off cutting up some onions. And while I'm cutting up these 4 onions that go in this chili, like I said, there's going to be about 10 portions maybe of this. And it'll work out, I think it works out to be about less than £1 a portion actually when I'm finished. So it's really good with a cost of, well, it's not a cost of living crisis, is it? Let's face it, it's a cost of corporate greed crisis. That's what's got us into this mess. I saw a report yesterday from the BBC, breaking news, BP's profits soar. They've doubled in the last 12 months. It's like, really? BP's profits have doubled? It's almost like everybody's paying double for gas and electric since a year ago, isn't it? Somebody's saying that microwaves are really, really bad. Michael says microwaves are really bad. They've been around for quite a while, Michael. Microwaves have. Is this one of those things where it's like, oh, this is really bad for you and that's really bad for you, and microwaves are really bad. I'm going to be using MSG later. You watch how many people in the chat flip out when I use MSG. You not like MSG? Why you not like MSG? Why you not like flavour? Hey, yeah, they've been around for quite a while, Michael. My microwave's about 20 years old. That knife doesn't cut. Yes, it does. I've just sharpened it. Asbestos has been for a while, doesn't mean it's good. Remember, my point is people aren't dropping down dying from the microwave, and they haven't for years, have they? People have been dropping down dying from asbestos poisoning. Eating fresh food that is not processed or microwaved is far better, says Michael. Alright. Well, I tell you what then. You do this, but don't put it in a freezer. Yeah? Oh, I'm looking forward to doing this actually. I haven't had this chili in ages. I haven't made a chili in ages. People are saying, Michael, yeah, people are saying that's an urban myth about microwave, mate. I'm inclined to agree. I'm gonna have to watch a TikTok on the best way to peel an onion now, because I always suck at them. Alright. Yeah, so while I'm actually cutting these onions, let me talk about a little bit of the stuff I've been covering over the last couple of weeks, because a couple of weeks ago I went down to London. The last time I was down in London, it was to cover the Free the Truth event and to see, to report on Stefania Maritzi's Freedom of Information Act request against Julian Assange, right? This is really important for people watching. This is the most important news item in the world right now, is the Julian Assange issue. And I just want to show you why and just how Orwellian this is, and just how your right to know and your right to know things is being hidden from you. So obviously Julian Assange is in prison at the moment in Belmarsh, for those of you who don't know. He's there on remand. He's not serving any sentence for any crime in this country, and he's awaiting extradition to the United States, and this could take 10 years. It really could. For the legal thing to play out. And the reason he's being extradited is because he told the truth about their war crimes. And the connotations of this are astounding. If you imagine, can you imagine China doing this, or Russia? You know, China saying you've got a journalist in your country who's not even a native to the UK, he's Australian. You've got a journalist there who's published evidence of our war crimes in the Guardian and Washington Post, and we don't like that. So we are going to charge him with an espionage something, and we're going to make you deliver him and pluck him out of your sovereignty. Do you think that the UK or would say, yeah, okay, fine, have that guy to torture him and do whatever you want with? Do you think that the UK? Of course not. Of course we wouldn't. And if it was Russia, it's the same thing. But because it's the United States of America, they seem to be exceptional. They seem to be able to get away with whatever they want on a global scale. The implications for press freedom and freedom of speech with this case are astounding. You need a viable fourth estate to hold power account, to hold democracy account. And if you don't have it, you don't really have a democracy. And that's exactly what's happened right now. We don't have a robust fourth estate. Our journalists, our media is broken. And it's been broken for years. And as I've been reporting for years, they're lying to you about a lot of things. And this shows it and it proves it, because this is the biggest case of press freedom ever. And the press don't want to cover it. Stefania Maritzi has been making Freedom of Information Act requests to the governments of Sweden, to the governments of the United Kingdom, United States and Ecuador. Remember, Julian was in the Ecuadorian embassy before he was, dragged out 4 years ago and thrown in our maximum of security prisons. And what she's found is quite astounding. First of all, she's uncovered very recently that the Swedish authorities have destroyed hundreds of pages of evidence, hundreds of pages. But she's also asking for the emails backward and forward between the Crown Prosecution Service and Sweden and the Swedish authorities at the time when Julian was sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy, sort of 13 years ago. Remember, he's been in Belmarsh for 4 years, but he was arbitrarily detained for 6 years before that, and that's the United Nations finding, not my, spin on it. So for years he was arbitrarily detained, and one of the reasons was because the CPS extended the whole, Sweden thing with Sweden. And Sir Keir Starmer was at the head of the CPS at that time, right? So Stefania has made a Freedom of Information Act request for the conversations between Sweden and the United Kingdom and US, etc. And the CPS won't release them. They've said, no, we won't release them. So the reason I went down to London was because Stefania she's contesting that in court. Okay? So the head of the CPS extradition unit was there, and he was testifying. And what he said was, we can't release those documents, right? We can't really, there's a Freedom of Act request been made by Stefania Maritzi, but we can't release those documents because to release those documents would, quote, and this is his words, have a chilling effect on extraditions worldwide. That's what he said. We can't release you these documents because it would have a chilling effect on extraditions all over the world going forward as a result. So one of the things that they've asked is, well, why would it have a chilling effect? And here is their response. Can you see that? What it says is, in my view, the chilling effect of such disclosures of the documents that Stefania wants releasing, the chilling effect of such disclosures is greater now than it may have been in 2017. And I give the following specific illustrations of events to support this claim. And the whole thing is redacted. This is the biggest case of press freedom ever. The CPS are saying we can't release these documents to a journalist because it would have a chilling effect on extraditions all around the world. And the reason is redacted. And the media don't want to touch it with a barge pole. They're lying to you, all of them. Any media not covering this case is lying to you. They're giving you shiny keys to look at. So yeah, I was down there, and it was interesting to see that head of the CPS start squirming. At one stage, he was being asked about the surveillance within the embassy. This is unlawful surveillance. This is, Julian Assange meeting with his lawyers and his doctors, and Pamela Anderson at one stage. She was filmed in the toilet by the CIA through a firm in Spain called UC Global. Now, this is proven. There was a court case in Spain about it, and they mentioned it in the court. And he said, the head of the CPS, I don't think that's proven, is it, that there was surveillance? The gallery laughed. Like, the people that were in the court laughed. We've seen the video. We've seen the surveillance video. We've seen it with our own eyes. And there he is gaslighting us, saying, no, I don't think it's proven, is it? And this is what they're doing. This is democracy dying in darkness, is what it is. And the UK and the media, especially the media, are turning out the lights. So yeah, that's quite amazing, isn't it? What do you think of that in the chat? What do you think of that? The fact that they're saying we can't release these documents because it would have a chilling effect on extraditions worldwide, and the reason it will have a chilling effect is redacted. What do you think about that? Hey, Calvin. Hey, Calvin. Do you want to come and say hello? My mate Calvin Lule Inspector's in the chat. Thanks, Crazy Horse. Thank you, mate. What am I cooking? Yes, I'm cooking chili. Let's get on with the chili. So yeah, they're hiding the truth from you, and the Assange story is the biggest story on the planet, and they're ignoring it totally, and they have done for years. The media is supposed to hold governments in power to account. He also said, by the way, that guy did, at the head of CPS, when he was being questioned by Stefania's lawyer, he also said that whilst he can't, his hands are tied and he can't release this information, he does think that stories with massive public interest should override that. So it was like he was playing both sides of the fence, do you know? He's like, well, I can't do it, but I think it should. It's wrong. It was kind of the gallery did not like him, but also the gallery understood that he's like a caught between a rock and a hard place. I think he's only been in the job 4 months or something like that. And this has been going on for years. He's playing catch up. It's all done by design, this is obviously. God, these onions, the skin on these onions are horrible. Okay. To the people watching, if you don't do this, by the way, if you are, if you do enjoy convenience like I used to, and you eat a lot of takeaways, you will not regret learning to do this. And it's so easy to do. This is one of the easiest recipes. It really is. The spare ribs are the same that I do as well, because it's just one pot. It's just one pot, and let it simmer. You don't have to be a good cook to do this. What else do I want to talk about? Yeah, how are you feeling in the chat about Jeremy Corbyn? Would you let me know what you think about Jeremy Corbyn? What's your thoughts? And I'll let you know what I think about him. Let you know what my feelings on him are. Let's have a chat about him, because yeah, there's a story about him that caught my eye this week with old David Baddiel. Bring Jeremy back, the people's champ, says Michael Knight. So you guys like him then? Personally, I think Jeremy Corbyn was basically the best that we had down there. And for 5 years, I think I've criticised him more than anybody else. But, you know, I was always going after him for not standing up and fighting what I considered to be a smear and a crisis which was overblown by the media in order to stop what would have been the most populist Prime Minister the UK has ever had. What do you think about that? Ashley Harmon, hi Ashley, says, this country not electing Jeremy was the biggest mistake we ever made as a country, in my opinion. That's strong, Ashley, for sure. I know a lot of people have these, because you listen to the mainstream media, don't you? And it's almost like people are, but I tell you that a lot of people seem to feel the same way than you do. The establishment would never accept him, says Mark Page. I agree with you there. The best Prime Minister we never had, says Peter. Jeremy volunteers quietly at my local food bank and homeless shelter. He's a good man. Teach agrees. Starmer wormed his way in, especially with right, I won't read the rest of that. But personally, I think his biggest strength is also his biggest weakness. In his biggest strength is he's a pacifist. He won't throw a punch. But it's also his biggest weakness too. He's a bit like Jesus, you know. Really, he's a good man, I think, and he's a bit like Jesus. And Jesus wouldn't throw a punch either, and he got crucified too. Do you know? He was a topic of. He was on Twitter this week trending because David Baddiel, who loves all things Israel, because, you know, who wouldn't love all things to do with an apartheid colonial state, you know, crushing military occupation and apartheid. Yeah, he was basically calling Corbyn an anti-Semite without calling him an anti-Semite this time. Do you want to hear this? It's staggering, you know, that this is still going on. Who in the chat hasn't seen the Labour files yet? For those of you who you know, I'm sure there might be people still in the chat thinking that Jeremy Corbyn was an anti-Semite, and it was, you know, he did hate the Jews. For those people, have you watched the Al Jazeera documentary, The Labour Files? And also, isn't it on the same theme as well, of me saying how the media aren't talking about the Julian Assange thing or the Freedom of Information Act request by Stefania? They also will not talk about the Labour files at all, will they? Will they? They won't talk about it. They won't even mention this massive documentary using the largest leak of a political party and its documents in its history, based on Labour's internal documents, that proves that Labour has a hierarchy of racism and operates a hierarchy of racism against black, Asian and ethnic minorities, but key, Jews as well, who are anti-Zionists. Keir Starmer has expelled way more Jewish people than Jeremy Corbyn ever did. But it's not for people being anti-Semitic, it's for people being anti-Zionist, you know, and anti-apartheid, essentially. And it proves that Corbyn was pretty much right all along. And it backs up, this documentary does, everything that was in the Ford report. And the media are totally ignoring it. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's have a listen to what old Baddiel said. Let's find it. Isn't it weird how it always seems to be the Jews that everyone has a problem with? Are they scapegoats? Joris Bonson says that. I don't think... Honestly, my opinion is there are obviously anti-Semites in the UK. Of course there are, and the people who don't like the Jews, just as there are people who are racist against any minority or authority. But I don't think there's an anti-Semitic problem in the UK. I think there's a lot of people in the UK who are getting really pissed off with Zionists, but that's not racist. Zionists can be Christian, they can be atheist, they can be whatever. They don't have to be Jewish. And I feel as if, you know... So this is the thing, we said never again, and it's Jews again that are getting victimised here. Because if you weaponise racism this way, what happens? People dismiss anti-Semitism and say there's no anti-Semitism at all. And I'm not saying that at all, I'm saying there is. But I'm saying it's been overblown. And when it's weaponised this way, who are the people that it affects the most? Jews. Because they get a backlash and then the anti-Semitism does come in and then the media report on that. It's like a self-perpetuating philosophy. I've been reporting on it for years. Yeah, all the videos are on my YouTube channel. You should go and watch it there. Right, let's find this video of... Here it is. Oops. So Jeremy Corbyn was on the news agents.
Jeremy Corbyn was an anti-Semite? I actually don't think that straightforwardly, no. I don't think that straightforwardly because...
So he's asked, Baddiel, whether he thinks Corbyn is an anti-Semite, and he says, I don't think he is, straightforwardly. So he's not straightforwardly a racist now? He's not overtly a racist? Is that what you're saying, David? You know, listen.
Do you think Jeremy Corbyn was an anti-Semite? I actually don't think that straightforwardly, no. I don't think that straightforwardly because I absolutely do not think that Jeremy Corbyn in the front of his mind hates Jews. I don't think Jeremy Corbyn would say things that Kanye has said in the front of his mind at all. What I do think is that he comes from a tradition that sees anti-Semitism as a lesser evil compared to, say, capitalism. Right? So in my mind, I talk about this in my book, I talk about that a little bit in the documentary, so the reason in my mind why Jeremy Corbyn can't see that mural of men playing Monopoly on the backs of the world's poor might be anti-Semitic is he just sees rich men playing Monopoly on the backs of the world's poor because he's interested in destroying and fighting against capitalism. Unfortunately, it's very clear to Jews that they all look really Jewish, and they're part of a tradition that feels like this is a sort of Nazi caricature of the idea of the rich capitalist Jew.
So what David Baddiel's saying there is, he's not racist, but he is really. That's what he's saying. He's saying, he's not racist, not overtly, not, in the front of his mind, but in the back of his mind, he kind of is, because he shared that one thing, that the poor, the rich people playing Monopoly on the backs of the poor. He shared that, and they all looked like they had big noses. That's basically what he's saying. Jeremy Corbyn has got like a 30, 40 years history of being the most anti-racist person Parliament has probably ever seen. Listen to what Corbyn responds with, though, because this is clear. This is interesting that the media don't pick up on this, and they don't put this side of things. Listen.
What do you think of what he's saying there? And what I'm trying to get at is that maybe...
Hang on. This mural business, let's deal with him. First of all, it was a very long time ago. And nobody said anything about my response at the time.
But you weren't the Labour Party.
Nobody said...
You guys know the picture I'm talking about, yeah? It's the caricature of the rich people playing Monopoly on the backs of the world's poor, and all the poor had to do to stop the game is just to stand up. It's not anti-Semitic, is it? But it's like, David's like, now that picture, they all look Jewish. It's like, come on. You're reaching. You are reaching so hard.
Anything about it whatsoever at all. So why is it that 7 years later...
Because you were leader of the Labour Party
7 years later, David Baddiel brings this thing up as something at the back of my mind.
No, but what David Baddiel was saying...
I would also like to put out, that guy, the guy who's interviewing him, worst interviewer. Even I know. You don't interrupt people like that. You let them speak. Go and watch my podcast. I was terrible when I first started. Kept interrupting everybody, but I've got better as it goes on, because you just got to shut up and let people speak. Listen.
He accepts that I am not a racist in any term. But fine. So why does he then sort of construct something that's allegedly at the back of my mind?
I suppose what he's trying to do is have a slightly more nuanced discussion.
I've never actually met him.
No.
I've never had a discussion.
What I'm trying to say
How does he know what's going on in my mind?
What I'm trying to say is...
And there you go. That's what it's come down to. This is what this whole anti-Semitism smear and this absolute witch hunt came down to. Yeah, okay. It's terrible, isn't it, that like many people in the country think Jeremy Corbyn now hates the Jews and is racist because of this smear, isn't it? But he's not a racist really, but he is in the back of his mind. And that's all they've got. So, it was interesting that there are now a subset of people who know this to be the case and who know that this, was a witch hunt against Corbyn to stop him being Prime Minister. And they know that it was their own party that joined in with this and conspired against it. They know this, and this is what the documentary, The Al Jazeera Labour Files, proves. But do you think the journalists in this country know that? They have ignored it, totally. I got to tell you, right, for the last few years, I've been... conversing with my politician about all manner of things, and she's always replied to me, but if I mention the Labour Files, she doesn't. Propaganda is not just what is said over and over and over. Often, the most glaring, obvious signs that you are being propagandized is what not is being reported. Alright. It's only took me about an hour to chop 4 onions, doesn't it? Alright, gonna get some cumin seeds. So 4 onions, a few cumin seeds. And we need 6 bulbs of garlic. You can chop up some garlic yourself, but I've got these pickled things in a jar. And it's going in a chili anyway, so I'll just chop these up. 6 cloves, we think. Yeah, 6. Another thing that came out of that David Baddiel video of him looking just, I mean, you know, trying to construct Jeremy Corbyn isn't a racist at the front of his mind, but he's at the back of his mind. There's a YouTuber, political YouTuber called Supertanskii. Did you guys heard of her? Supertanskii. She's got blonde hair. She looks up at the camera like, dystopia warning, like that. You know her, don't you? So she was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons because of this. Guess which side she came out on? Guess whether she came out on Jeremy Corbyn's side or David Baddiel's side? Tan, yeah. She came out in defence of David Baddiel, saying that David Baddiel had said something profound, and basically arguing that Jeremy Corbyn had ignored all that, and we'd all ignored it, and what he said there was profound. Do you think what Baddiel said there was profound? Well, she came out and defended him, and next thing you know, people had gone back in her old Facebook posts and found a picture of her. This is a picture of her at Glastonbury drunk with a bit of dirt on her lip there, giving a nasty salute. Giving a nasty salute at a drunk at a Glastonbury 10 years ago. This is somebody who, you know, it's terrible, isn't it? Anti-Semitism and racism. Now, listen, I've been drunk many times in the past. Many times. I've been very drunk. I've climbed lampposts. I've done extremely dangerous things when I've been drunk. And, you know, I'm lucky really that I didn't give myself an injury. I don't think I've ever gone so far as to give a nasty salute and pretend I was the Führer. I don't think so. So yeah, she was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons, and she's had to come out and make a, a statement. But she was trending on Twitter, so she's made it now. You know, she's got 100,000 followers on Twitter. That's what happens, you know. If you say the right things, you go up in the world. If you say the right things, the establishment embrace you. Somebody asked, somebody asked on a live stream not long ago, why aren't the journalists in the UK, why don't they report on Assange and stuff like, why don't they all do what you did? It's because then they'd be like me, broke in a council flat, having to do this. You know? They wouldn't have their platforms. Alright, should we start cooking? Let's put some chilies in right from the beginning actually. What I've got here, I use a lot of chilies all the time. I use them in a lot of my food. So what I do is I buy a bag from a market, and I freeze them and just take them out whenever I need them. If you're going to do this, or if you're going to cook your own food, do something like this. It's much cheaper than, you know, buying the chilies from the supermarket. And the same goes for the spices as well. I mean, I buy these spices in the jars just because you've got the jar, but then I don't throw the jar away. I get a refill, the packet refill. It's much cheaper that way. So this chilli, we're going to put 6 bird's eyes and a Scotch bonnet in. Scotch bonnets are hot, and please in the chat remind me to wash my hands as soon as I have finished chopping these, because yeah, I always end up sticking my finger in my eye or something like that. If you do freeze your chilies, make sure you chop them up like this. For some reason, my blender won't chop them up very good while they're frozen. I'm surprised at her, says Peter. I wasn't. I wasn't. And we're talking about that Supertanskii. No, I wasn't. My only interaction ever was on TikTok with her. She does live streams where she's there with a glass of wine. Some of them are quite fun. I liked her videos. I really did. Some of her videos about the Tories I thought were excellent. She'll never say anything bad about Keir Starmer. You know, you can see which side her bread is buttered for sure. I mean, I support Jeremy Corbyn, but I criticised him more than anybody. But yeah, she won't criticise Starmer, and she'll very criticise, obviously, Corbyn. And it's okay. Her stuff on and the anti-Tory stuff was very good, so I liked her. And I was watching one of her live streams on TikTok actually, and she said, somebody asked her in the chat, what makes you working class? Now, to that I would say, well, I've lived on a council estate my entire life. You know, people in my road quite often go to prison. You know, I've been on the dole, my parents were on the dole, etc., etc. Her response to it just staggered me. Somebody said, what makes you working class? She says, what makes me working class? Well, I'm working class because I grew up in the poorest part of a really posh village. What? That makes you working class? So I repeated it back to her. I said, in the chat, like you're writing, I said, I'm sorry, did you just say, quote, you're working class because you grew up in the poorest part of a really posh village? And she looked at me and she went, oh, Gordon, and blocked me. And that was it. You can't debate people like that. They won't, it's like the slightest bit of questioning and their whole shtick falls apart. If you can't respond to somebody repeating back to you your own words. I wasn't trolling her. I was seriously asking. I'm sorry, that's what makes you working class? Alright, so in there I've got 4 onions, I've got about 6 bird's eye chilies, I've got a Scotch bonnet, I've got 6 cloves of garlic chopped and some cumin seeds. And now we're going to finally start cooking. So it took us about an hour. Wash your hands, thank you. Thank you. Typical UK apartment. This is just a one-bedroom flat. This is. How about washing your hands before you cook? I did. I did. All right. In this, I am going to. Oh, there's beer there. Let's have a beer. That beer fell out. Oh, I have to have that. 1.5 kilograms of mince. I just use the cheapest mince there is. Honestly, I would use like vegetarian mince if I thought it was any good. It just, the texture's not right in the vegetarian mince. But yeah, you can use whatever you want. You can use, you know, go, if you're Rockefeller, you know, put some 20% mince in. This is just pork, beef and pork mince that I use because it's the cheapest. .5 kilos. Alright, so I'm going to let those onions just sweat off in the bottom, and I'm going to break that up in a second. But on top of it, I'm going to put, you can put whatever you like in a chili, right? You can put whatever you like. What I go with generally, first of all, is paprika. Put about a tablespoon of paprika in. I'm going to go with obviously chili powder. I've got some hot chili powder here. It's not coming out right. Remember, I've got chilies in here as well, so I'm not going to go overboard on the chili powder. Maybe 1.5 tablespoons. About a tablespoon of ground cumin. A generous amount of salt and pepper. I haven't seen the other stuff. She just wants to shot of the Tories and know that he's our only chance. Well, here's the thing. If you get shot of the Tories, you end up with a Tory. That's the thing with Keir Starmer. He's a Tory. That's what he is. He's Sir Keir Starmer. All right. I'm also going to freak everybody out now. MSG. Put about a quarter of a tablespoon in there. Watch everybody freak out. No, it's poison! If you don't want MSG, don't put it in your chili. Alright, got it on about a medium heat, so I'm just going to brown that off now. I feel like Keir Starmer is David Cameron 2.0, says Jarvis Bonson. I don't think you're wrong there, mate. I really don't. I think the trouble with getting a Tory in the Labour Party is they can get away with shit the Tories never could. Look at Tony Blair with the PFI stuff. Look at Tony Blair with the weapons of mass destruction stuff. Look at Tony Blair, you know, he couldn't Tories couldn't get away with that shit. Not back then anyway, they could now, because obviously he was the flag bearer. In America it was the same. Bill Clinton brought in the Telecommunications Act. And he was the guy who basically means that you only have 3 different fucking places now to get your media from in the US. They're all owned by the same people, same 3 people. That was Bill Clinton with the Telecommunications Act that allowed that to come into being. Obama took Bush's 2 wars into 7. Obama made them 7, but we always think about Bush being the warmonger, right? You know, the problem with having a system where you only got evil and the lesser of 2 evils is it can be set up that way. And then, no matter who wins, you get the establishment, right? Do you listen to Jimmy Dore? I'm a big fan. I'm a friend of Jimmy's. I'm a friend. Well, I hope I am. Anyway, I hope he says the same about me. It's going to take a while for that to brown because there's quite a lot of mince in there. We'll just prep what we need next. We need Worcestershire sauce, some Shaoxing cooking wine, where's my peppers? The 3 peppers. So I'm just going to brown that mince off and then I'm going to put these peppers in. Now, when you're making this chilli, if you are going to make this chilli, you can put in like potatoes, carrots, you can put in whatever you want. I mean, yeah, it's a chilli, but you're not going to go to prison, you know? You're putting something in that ain't traditional. Who's Jimmy Dore, says Peter? You don't know who Jimmy Dore is, Peter? Get your ass over to YouTube and type in Jimmy Dore and become a subscriber immediately. He's a US comedian who covers the news and has been covering the news in America better than journalists have for about, well, certainly as long as I can remember. So it's the past like 6 years for me, I've been getting my information from him and watching his show. He's even mentioned me on it a few times, which is nice. I'd like to add an OXO cube to my chilli. There's not an OXO cube going in, but there is some chicken stock going in. And that goes in at the end because it simmers away for about an hour and a half, this does. Shouldn't have put that in there yet. Right. Just brown the mint, make sure the mince is nice and brown before you. I shouldn't have put those, shouldn't have put that pepper in just yet. Make sure it's the mince is nicely browned off before you add this. I'm going to put some peas in as well, I think. I haven't had peas in my chilli for ages. Can you put peas in the chilli, do you reckon? Yeah, oxo tube in a chilli. That's a good idea. I'm going to put some. I'm going to put some of this in. It's actually chicken stock, but it tastes lovely and everything. I actually cook my rice in this. Yeah, I'll put some of that in at the end and let it simmer. Just waiting for this to brown now. There was no insides to that pepper. Didn't you see what I did? If you get the pepper from the top and you push it in with your thumb, and you can just pull it out. I should have showed you, shouldn't I? My opinion of David Icke. I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. I tell you what I've noticed. What I've noticed is what the word is about people, right, is seldom what I find those people to be if I listen to them. That's because, I mean, the media's opinion of Alex Jones, for instance, is that he's a conspiracy theorist, etc., etc., and he's a whack job. It's like, hold on a minute, this guy was talking about Jeffrey Epstein 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before anybody else. He was talking about the Clintons being corrupt back in the 90s. You know, way before the BBC. They still don't think they are. So, and when he was on Twitter, I used to occasionally tune in. He's very entertaining, especially if you don't take what he says. If you take what he says with a pinch of salt, he's really quite funny. So, although I don't know anything about David Icke really, I can't really give you an opinion. I will say this. He was in a... I've been to many protests over the last few years, covering events, you know, recording them, live streaming, etc. And he was at one anti-vaccine sort of rally that we went to, an anti-lockdown rally it was. And we were walking in front of him, and Titchy's in the chat, she'll tell you, she'll back me up on this. He said that people who take the vaccine are going to end up dying of heart attacks and stuff. We laughed at the time. On a totally unrelated note, have you heard about these excess deaths that countries are having? 20-30% higher? Like, you know, if people were dying at that rate back in COVID times, they would have shut the country down. Alright, so that's browned off now. So I put in 3 peppers, chopped. Tomato puree. What's happened to the Clintons? The Clintons are, well, a highly corrupt flux of pink Indians. Did you know Jeffrey Epstein was, well, he was at fundraisers for the Clintons as far back as before Clinton was president in the early 90s. Did you know that? At fundraisers for them, doing You know, Bill Clinton, you know, he was on the Lolita Express 26 times. Is it 26 or 27? So about half a tube of tomato puree I'll put in there. And then we're going to go with 2 tins of tomatoes and a tin of kidney beans. I'm going to turn this heat just down so it simmers a little bit. Oh, yes. Well, that's useless, isn't it? That's the old one. Where's my new one? Oh, that's no good. Okay, tin of kidney beans and 2 tins of chopped tomatoes rather. I nearly said tomato ketchup then. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce. You don't have to put this in if you don't want to. A little bit of Shaoxing cooking wine. You don't, again, doesn't really need that. It's just something that I use for my spare ribs that I've got. And give it a mix. Alright. Where is it? I've got another jar somewhere. Where's my other jar? I know I've got another jar though somewhere. There they are. Sliced green jalapenos. Put in as many of these as you want or as little. Again, they're optional. If I can get the jar open. Put in some of the pickling juice as well. I'm going to put half a jar inside it. Alright, boil the kettle. Starting to look very nice, very colourful. So that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, just need to top that up now with probably what, 2 tins, maybe. Put maybe a pint of hot water in there, and I'll put a teaspoonful of that in, which is chicken stock. You can use beef stock, oxo cube, as somebody mentioned in the chat. You can do that. I like this though because that's got MSG in as well, and that's one of my favourite ingredients because it makes everything taste yummy. Looks good. It smells amazing. Somebody calling me Ian Beale. I don't know why I get that all the time. I really don't. There was something else to come from that. Well, I was talking earlier about the whole Jeremy Corbyn, David Baddiel thing, and the fact that it was a witch hunt, and anti-Semitism in the Labour Party was overblown, as he said, by the media for political purposes and his political opponents. The journalists in this country just still aren't getting it, you know. They're still not fessing up to it. Even after all these years, even after the Al Jazeera documentary, the Labour files, even after the Ford report, they still not get it. This is, I want to show you something from Emily Matlis. She was on, she used to be on Newsnight, do you remember Emily Matlis? She was the one who interviewed Prince Andrew. And she retweeted this out from William Hague, you know, the politician. This, thank you, William Hague, she says. I'm going to read it to you, what William Hague wrote. And I think he wrote it in the Times or something. But she's agreeing with it. This. Thank you, William Hague. William Hague says this. It has become more common in recent years for political leaders to disclaim responsibility for their own actions. Jeremy Corbyn denied the extent of anti-Semitism under his leadership. Most glaringly, Donald Trump refused any blame for the Capitol riots, or even to accept his election defeat. He's equating Jeremy Corbyn with Donald Trump, and the journalists agreeing with him. I replied, I mean, it goes on, you can see it on my, I won't read it all because it's glaringly obvious that these people are not going to change their minds and are not going to admit, oh yeah, it was a political hack job on Jeremy Corbyn and democracy in this country is a joke. They're not going to admit that because they actually went along with this. They're culpable in it. I tell you, these journalists, about a teaspoon of this I'll put in, these journalists need to be careful. Because if ever there is a Nuremberg 2 with regards to the West's crimes, and there are many, those journalists are going to be, their heads are going to be up for the chop as well. I'm going to put a bit more water in now actually and just let it simmer. So that's it. That is all the ingredients to my chilli. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it on the lowest heat and I'm going to let it simmer for an hour and a half. So the lowest heat, and just put it on a low heat rather, not the lowest, and just let it simmer for about an hour and a half. And what that'll do is that'll thicken the sauce up and it'll bring all of the flavours together. Let me just show you it. Oh, you can't really can't really see. That'll bring all the flavours together, and it's one of the nicest. I love chilli. I absolutely love chilli, and it's so versatile. You can have it with a jacket potato. You can have it on its own in a bowl with some cheese sprinkled on top. You can have it with garlic bread. You can have it with chips. You can have it with rice. You know, there's so many different meals that this will go into. And it's a real staple of my diet since I've started cooking for myself. You're from Chile, says Kanchi. Hi from the UK. Hi to Chile. In your opinion, is Trump part of it? Well, what I responded to Emily Matlis was this. I said, ask William Hague if he's seen the Al Jazeera documentary, The Labour Files, and ask him if he's heard who Ray Epps is. Do you know in the chat who Ray Epps is? Anybody from America, do you know who Ray Epps is? Google it. Google Ray Epps. Forget the stuff from Snopes and whatever, trying to discredit it. But this is somebody who, was openly calling on January the 6th for the crowd to assault the Capitol. And he's on camera on 6 separate occasions doing it. Saying, we need to go into the Capitol building on camera. And everybody else around him going, you're fed. They arrested all these people, didn't they, because of January the 6th, and they've had all these hearings for Donald Trump. They've never arrested Ray Epps. Never. He was on the FBI's, most wanted people. He's done interviews and stuff. But Donald Trump was the person who led the assault on the Capitol, right? Don't you find it interesting that on YouTube you can question the JFK assassination, you won't get a strike. You can question 9/11, you won't get a strike. You can question any election for any time in American history and you won't get a strike. But if you question the 2020 election, they will take your video down for misinformation. Alright, so this is simmering away nicely. This is going to need about 90 minutes. It is 6:24, so that will be dished up at 8 o'clock. And that's when I'm going to finish this stream. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to cook something else. Because I'm going to prep my Gordo's chicken. Just going to put this on the back. Oh, no, I'm not. So I'm just going to prep it. Trump is the man to stop all these Muppets at war the now, says Brydog. No, he's... there are no good people in this story. There's no good guys. Trump's not a good guy. Biden's not a good guy. They're all bad guys, and it's a big club. And you and I are not in the big club. That's the truth of it. Don't look for heroes in the political sphere. There aren't any. And if there are, they're the ones who've got crucified. Yeah. Alright. So yeah, it doesn't look like the journalists are going to change their tune any time. They're in... Jeremy Corbyn is a raging racist who hated the Jews is the line that they're going with, no matter how much evidence to the contrary comes out. And if any evidence does come out, they're just going to ignore it. I mean, that's a great way to do the political discourse in this country, isn't it? If evidence comes out that one of the major parties in this country is racist against black and Asian and ethnic minorities and Jews, has a hierarchy of racism, let's just not report on it because, you know, reasons. It'll make us look bad. It'll show that everything that we've been reporting on for the last 4 or 5 years has been a total scam. All right. They did Corbyn dirty, says Body and Soul Scars. Yes, they did. Peter says, knowledgeable and active as you are, how do you manage to stop things, to stop goings on affecting your mental health? Well, the truth is, Peter, it's been a struggle. The last few years have been a real struggle, and I struggled massively with my mental health, and actually had a mental health breakdown. I won't go into it too much here, but it was bad. And anybody who's had mental health problems knows that this is a severe thing. And for me, I mean, I had some goings on in my personal life that were the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But for me, it was the constant gaslighting and the no, you're crazy to think that. You're crazy to think that. Even though I've got all the evidence to say, no, this man's in prison and he's innocent of all the crimes. And it's awful. And it's awful to keep coming up against brick walls wherever you go, and the constant gaslighting and the ignoring it all by the media and politicians. The way I got through it was exercise and diet and family, and just trying to understand that I can't save everybody. And the understanding that it's probably always been this way, and the only reason now it's so obvious that everything they're lying to us about everything is because we've got the internet and we've got information at our fingers. I mean, how did you settle an argument in the 1980s? Do you remember? For those of you old enough, if your mate in the pub said something, you had no way of checking that was true or false. You know, you can call people out on their bullshit now, and we've never had that ability before. And I also think that why this is one of the reasons why there's been a rise in mental health as well, because it's changed our lifestyle. But yeah, for me, it was diet, and it was exercise, and it was just enjoying life and getting out into nature as well, getting outside. I go out, I walk the dog all the time now, even if it's, snowing. And you just got to realise that, you're not the only one here. You're not the only one who feels this way. And you're not the only one who's realised they're lying bastards, and they're lying to us en masse. And it's on purpose. On purpose, they're lying to us. Emily Matlis is not a bad journalist. She's not. She's not a bad journalist. So if she isn't reporting on the Labour files and she's still representing Jeremy Corbyn as a racist, and these people are still doing it, then they're not serious and they're lying to you. And that's the worst kind of thing for them to do as well, because if you're weaponising anti-Semitism, racism like that, then people are going to get pissed off. And who they're going to get pissed off with? They're going to get pissed off with Jewish people as well. You're going to cause a rise in anti-Semitism because people are going to think, oh, you're ignoring these people. You're ignoring the truth. And then you're going to get a rise in anti-Semitism. So Jews, they're the ones who have been hurt the most in this. If you actually look at who Keir Starmer has ejected from the Labour Party, he's ejected Jews at like 4, 5, 6 times more than Corbyn did. And remember, Corbyn was criticised, first of all, because because the disciplinary process was outside of his control, and then he was criticised because he took it under his control and started explaining these people who were anti-Semites. He got criticism both ways. And they'll call on that all the time, but they won't mention the Al Jazeera documentary. They'll talk about January the 6th all the time, but they won't mention Ray Epps. Come on. Ray Epps wasn't the only guy there that was an obvious Fed either. This is not me. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've got it. He's on camera doing it. Go and search him. You'll find it. Ray Epps. We need to storm the cap. We need to go in the building, he's saying. They never arrested him. They sent that guy with the furry hat to prison, didn't they? Maybe it's time they looked in the mirror and asked themselves why people don't like them. Well, yeah, it's Chilli-con-carne to the person asking in the chat. Yeah, that's the thing. Nobody trusts them anymore, do they? I mean, do you trust the media? Do you trust the BBC? Nobody trusts them. And once you get to the stage where people don't trust, well, you've got an uphill battle then. They wouldn't. If the pandemic happened again now, if the pandemic happened again now, do you think people will be as compliant as they were during the first and second lockdowns? I bet you they wouldn't. Not now. Because we're getting all sorts of facts come out. And facts that they wanted hidden for 75 years in the case of Pfizer. So this is not conducive to a society that's going to comply with any government measures in the future, you know? I mean, look at what they are talking about. Look at what they are making a big deal about in the news. What do you think about this balloon? What do you think about this balloon in the chat? What do you think about this Chinese, so-called Chinese balloon that America shut down? It's a goddamn weather balloon. These have been floating around the world for years. Years these things have been floating around the world. 3 of them went over America during Trump's presidency. But Blinken was about to go and meet Xi Jinping in China next week, wasn't he? And then all of a sudden, oh, it's a Chinese spy balloon. No, it's a weather balloon. Why would they use a balloon to spy on you when they've got satellites that can do that? Why? It makes no sense. It's a weather balloon. So you've made this big hullabaloo. The last time a weather balloon caused a hullabaloo like this was Roswell. Not that that was a weather balloon, of course. But you see my point. So, as a result of them shooting down this weather balloon, this Chinese spy balloon, Jesus Christ, they've called off this summit between Anthony Blinken, who is Secretary of State in America, and Xi Jinping, increasing tensions between the world, two countries, which obviously the military-industrial complex and Raytheon and Boeing and Northrop Grumman and General Dynamics and all these companies absolutely love in America, and it's $900 billion, $900 billion a year almost, $900 billion, and a weather balloon makes them shit their pants. And Marco Rubio, a senator, on TV going, oh, well, if Trump was president, he wouldn't have... 3 of them flew over America while Trump was president, and he didn't bat an eyelid. But you'll use this as a way to drum up war with China now. Because, you know, you did so well in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and Vietnam and... Do you know what I mean? They couldn't beat the Taliban. They think they're going to beat the Chinese. But it's not about winning. The goal is not, Julian Assange said it, the goal is not to win the war. The goal is an endless war. He said it about Afghanistan, but you can use it for, you can say the same about China. You could say it now about China. You could say it now about Ukraine. The goal with these people is not to win the war. It's an endless war. Because wars make them money. And the people who support their campaigns and pay for their campaigns, especially in America. Come on, where is that video? I know I've got it on my timeline. Here it is. Oh no. He said this about Afghanistan.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful.
And that was, well, 11, 12 years ago. Gee, I wonder why they've slammed him in prison, right? I wonder why he's in prison, serving no sentence for no crime in this country, in the worst hellhole in the UK. I wonder why that man. But they can't, you know, they can't release the documents of them talking to America or anything about it, because it would be it would be disastrous for extradition treaties worldwide. And the reason it would be disastrous is redacted, and you can't know. But you know, put your Ukraine flag in your bio and support Ukraine. Go Zelensky. Peter asks, where do you see this country and the world as a whole in 10 or 20 years' time? Peter, not here, is the truth. We carry on. If we carry on doing what we're doing, we're not going to survive. We're not. We're going to end up dying in a nuclear war. All of us are. If it carries on this way. They are absolutely the powers that be. And I'm not just talking America, I'm talking in this country as well, and leaders around the world. They would rather kill everybody on the planet than have their secrets aired and have the public know what crimes they've been doing in our name. They would rather go to war, nuclear war, than tell the truth about what's actually been going on. If you look at America, for instance, right now, I mean, it's going to be America, let's face it, or Israel, and they are indistinguishable at this point, aren't they, at this juncture? It's going to be them that cause it. I mean, you know, I've talked about the Ukraine situation a lot. For those people in the Ukraine, in the chat who you know, are unaware of this and be getting their news from mainstream media, Ukraine's a proxy war between NATO and Russia, and it's been heading this way for years. This is not Putin being a madman. This is a red line for Russia. You can't have... If we broke up, if the United Kingdom broke up, right, and then 10 years later, China installed a new Scottish Prime Minister who was pro-Chinese, and then they started asking to put missiles in Scotland pointed at the UK, what do you think the UK would do about that? Because that is the exact equivalent of what is happening with the Ukraine and Russia right now after the breakup of the Soviet Union. That's exactly what's happened. What do you think we would do? What do you think America would do if Russia ousted AMLO in Mexico and put missiles, nuclear missiles, on the American border, pointed at America? And any American-speaking Mexicans, for 8 years, they armed separatists in the country and the furthest right-wing Nazis to bomb them, killing 14,000 people in 8 years. What do you think America would do? This is a red line for Russia. This is a NATO proxy war with Russia. And the aim is not, as Julian said there, the aim is not to win the war. The aim eventually is to get regime change in Russia. That's what they want, because they've got no oil, I think. But, you know, they want regime change in Russia. That's the reason. It's backfiring terribly on them. The Russian economy is actually doing quite fine. But the goal isn't to win that war, really. It's an endless war. To wash money out of Washington and back into the hands of a transnational elite, just as Julian said there, with regards to Afghanistan. And this has been, the Ukraine situation has been heading in this direction for years. And anybody, any academic, like John Mearsheimer, for instance, go and look his speech up, I've done a video about him, who accurately predicted that this was going to happen, was ousted from society and painted as some kind of anti-Semite. People who accurately said, this is what is happening in Ukraine, and to a T, he almost prophesied exactly what has happened. And now we've got Zelensky over here in the UK today, asking Rishi Sunak, no doubt, for more cyber weapons and photon torpedoes and starfleets. Because that's how we're going to win the wars against Russia. Yeah, Lee Hurst, the comedian Lee Hurst says, Zelensky's come over to the UK today to visit our money. Thought that was good. It's sad to see the citizens being used as puppets. I know pigeon scare coming. I know. People are dying. They're conscripting 16-year-old kids in Ukraine. They're dragging them off the street to go in this meat grinder and die in a proxy war against Russia. It's awful. Our leaders should be going to prison for what they're doing. It's awful. These are war crimes. But, you know, it's only Russian war crimes that matter. The UK, the US, Israel, we're exceptional. We're allowed to, you know, because we're the good guys. Hitler thought he was the good guy too. NATO could have defended Crimea. Somebody's just said in the chat. Make no bones about this. And for people, I know there's going to be people who are going to be cheering this on. It's like war between NATO and Russia or NATO and China, direct conflict, is World War III and the end of humanity. That's it. We're going to die, all of us. Goes back to Peter's question earlier. Where do we see us in 10, 20 years' time? Dead in a ditch. That's the truth. It's awful. And I know this is one of the reasons why it had such an effect on my mental health when I could see just how awful things were and how, mate, go and live in Russia, Pat has just said. Hey mate, go and live in Russia. I don't want to live in Russia. I want a free press. I don't want what's happening in Russia and the clampdown on free speech and censorship that they've got in Russia happening over here. But that's exactly what's happening. If you're okay for this, then you're okay to live in a Russian society. If you're okay with all of this. Russia committed war crimes. Yes, they did, Nelia. They did. And by the way, I'm against this invasion. I'm against this war, and I have been right from the very start. I have been. I've been quite vocal about it. I'm against it. I've condemned it right from the very beginning. But I also know the history, and I know why it's happening. This is not what you're being told from your mainstream media. And that's the only reason that you would come at me with that, oh, go and live in Russia then, is because you're believing what they're telling you on the mainstream media, on the BBC. The very people who you know have lied to you your entire lives about every war in history. What makes you think they're telling the truth about this one? They lied about Gaddafi. They lied about Assad. They lied about weapons of mass destruction. They lied about incubator babies. They lied about the Gulf of Tonkin. They lie about all of the wars. What makes you think they're telling the truth about this one? Go and live in Russia. I mean, do you want nuclear war? Because that's what's going to happen if this carries on. If we don't get peace, we're going to get nuclear war. If we don't get peace, there's two ways this ends. Peace or nuclear war. That's it. That's it. Do you want nuke? Do you want your entire family and everybody on the planet to die in an awful nuclear apocalypse? Because that's where this is heading. That's how bad this is. Don't tell me to go and live in Russia when I don't want to live in Russia. I want to live in a free and fair society, and that's not what we've got at the moment because our media are lying to... This is my first beer, by the way. Half a beer. I'm always like this, guys. I don't have to have a beer to be like this. User 3130. Anyone who looks into the history of NATO will see why things are happening in Ukraine. This war did not start in February, guys. It just didn't. Didn't start a year ago in February. This has been going on for years, over a decade. And it's NATO expansion after the fall of the Berlin Wall that is causing it. The Russians were promised by the Americans and NATO that once the falling of the Berlin Wall happened, NATO wouldn't expand 1 inch eastward. There are documents, there are actual, emails and cables proving that this was agreed. It was never written down there. And that's the way the Americans just carried on expanding. And now they're on Russia's border. It's a waste of time having a nuclear deterrent if you can be wiped out by a nuclear attack before you get chance to launch your missiles. Do you see what I mean? A nuclear deterrent is only there if you can launch your missiles. If you've got missiles on the border all around your country and you can be annihilated before you can even press the button, that's not a deterrent. That's why you can't have Russia, if you're Russia, you can't have nuclear missiles on your border from a hostile entity such as NATO. It's not defensive, it's hostile. We wouldn't allow them in Scotland. America wouldn't allow them in Mexico or Canada. We just wouldn't. Why is it this okay for us to do it against Russia all the way over there in Eastern Europe? Pat, exactly, as if Putin hasn't tried to expand his territory, says David. David, he tried to expand his territory. Why did he take Crimea? Why did he do it? He took Crimea as a result of the election being over, the coup in 2014. That's why he did it, because of the American interference in Ukraine. That's why. Had NATO not been in Ukraine all that time and years before, and I've showed video of Nancy Pelosi's son over there, and obviously Hunter Biden was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company. Come on, think about this. He took Crimea as a response to what NATO had done with Yanukovych. You can check this all up. There's a leaked conversation between Victoria Nuland saying Yats is the guy and F the EU. It's on YouTube. You can find that clearly. And obviously the media aren't giving you all this backstory and history like I do. You can be against the war and be historically and factually correct about things, and not just try and propagandise in a nation into giving, let's face it, a madman, probably cokehead, Zelensky, billions. Remember, all of the reporting for 8 years in our Western media, go and check it, all of the reporting in The Guardian and the BBC on Ukraine for 8 years before the invasion of Russia was that Ukraine was the most corrupt country on the planet and it had a severe neo-Nazi problem in its military. That is our Western media that was saying this for 8 years. And then as soon as Russia invaded Ukraine, the story flipped on almost on a dime. Overnight, we've got to send them money. You were saying it's the most corrupt country in the planet. Oh, forget that. We've got to send them. What are you, a Putin apologist? Excuse me? Nations have to be lied into supporting wars. Putin arrests and kills any opposition, says Outbid Barber. Do you think America doesn't arrest and kill people? Do you think they don't kill people without arresting them? Who do you think killed Seth Rich? Do you know who Seth Rich is? Why do you think the FBI want to seal the contents of Seth Rich's laptop for 63 years, 66 years, so the public can't find out this person who was a DNC staffer, who many believe leaked the DNC emails, and it wasn't a hack from Russia. Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? Putin's whole thing, if you listen to any of Putin's speeches, Putin's whole thing, whenever he's confronted with any allegations of him being a bad man, it's just like, you think I'm so bad? Come on. The West, and if you actually start thinking, hold on a minute, yeah, that's right, and you take yourself outside of the way the mainstream media frame things, it's like, hold on a minute, well, okay, so he expanded into Crimea and he invaded Afghanistan, there were a couple of other things, but that's it really in my lifetime. How many countries have America invaded in that time? How many countries have America overthrown their democratically elected leader in a coup? How many countries have they, strangled out of existence with sanctions, crippling sanctions that target the most vulnerable and the sick in order to try and get them to rise up and fight their mad dictator and put in somebody who's friendly to them? How many countries? I mean, they've bombed, I think, 10 in the last 20 years. That's just the ones they admit. Do you know they've got a military presence in like almost every country in Africa? Why? They have 1,000 military bases around the world, America do. 1,000! I think Russia's got about 6. China's got, I think, 1 or 2. America have 1,000! And a military budget that's larger than the next 10 or 12 countries combined, 10 of which, or 8 of which, are allies. It's not really. Russia's the bad person. How many children died in Iraq as a result of those sanctions? Was it 1 million? Didn't Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of State at that time, isn't she on camera saying it was worth it to kill those 1 million kids? How many kids has... listen, I'm not saying he's a good guy. There's no good guys here. But if you look at the scoreboard, Putin's an amateur compared to every American president in history. It's been at war like 98% of its history. I think there's only like 15 years where it hasn't been at war in its entire existence. But Putin's got to face war crimes. Why just Putin? America has always won and left, says Neelio. Well, this is the thing, they don't, do they? They went into Afghanistan. Look at Afghanistan now. Look at it now. Look at all the reporting. It's in a terrible state. The Taliban, they fought the Taliban and they won. Why? Because the Taliban are in power. What? For 20 years. And why did they fight that war? They told us originally because Bin Laden was there. Well, they found Bin Laden in Pakistan allegedly 10 years ago. Why did it take 10 years to get out? And now look at the devastation. Look at Libya. Look at what they did to Gaddafi. Again, I'm not saying he was a good person. I'm not. But who are we to be saying how another country should be led and what their leaders of other countries should be doing? Our leaders don't do what we want. Our leaders are awful, horrible human beings who lie through their teeth. Look at Boris Johnson and Trump. You're basically saying, oh, well, we should be able to go in there and do whatever we want because their leaders are bad. Well, we've had Boris Johnson and Trump. Do you think we want Russia and China to come in and oust our leader because they're bad? I say Trump just because, Trump is no better or worse than any of them, by the way. That's a caveat I would like to say. He's just as bad as... You could make an argument that he's better than Biden and Obama, to be honest, with the amount of countries that Obama bombed. 90%, over 90% of the people killed by drone strikes during Bush's, Obama's, Trump's and Biden's presidencies, over 90% of the people killed in their drone strikes, and there have been tens of thousands of them, are innocent civilians. Innocent. The only person who's gone to jail for that, by the way, is the person who leaked the information, Daniel Hale. Why aren't the people in charge of these drone programs? Why aren't they in court for war crimes? Why is it only Putin? If you think about it, we're doing his election campaign for him. All he's got to do is say to his people, look at what they're saying. Look at what they've done and look at what they're saying. Look at them pointing over here saying my shit stinks and our shit stinks. Look at this. He doesn't have to do propaganda. He's just got to show them the way the West are talking about Russia. We're giving our weapons to him on the plate, says Paul there. Well, I mean, look at what happened in Afghanistan. Do you remember all that, the helicopters and the planes and everything that they left when they turned tail and ran from Afghanistan? Look at how much, billions of weapons just left there. They don't care. It's money, baby. They've been paid for it already. That's the beautiful thing about weapons. Once they've exploded, you need to replace them, and there's more money to come. This is why they need the war. It's who funds their elections in America. The two biggest sponsors of the politicians' campaigns in America are the military-industrial complex and the big pharma and the fossil fuel industry. That's number 3. Are you from Brum, says Pat. No, I'm not. How dare you? I'm from Wolverhampton. I'm not a Brummie. I don't speak like that, do I? Yeah, I'm from Wolverhampton. I'm a yam. Isn't Putin in talks with ISIS about the weapons that were left behind? I think that's a bit of a red herring, I've got to be honest, to the person who's just said that. I think that's a bit of a red herring. I think the stuff that was left in Afghanistan and what have you, I think it's generally, useless now. They probably would have sabotaged it before they left. I mean, let's face it. Right, I'm just going to put that on the back low heat for like an hour to simmer away. and I'm going to make my favourite meal. Now, I won't be eating this tonight. I'm going to be preparing it tonight, and I'm going to be eating it tomorrow and the day after, because like I say, I'm going down to London for the Assange event this weekend. So I need to prep some food for the next couple of days. So what I'm making, does anybody like Nando's? Do you like Nando's chicken? Because what I'm going to show you here is my version of Nando's, and I call it Gordo's chicken. So, first of all, get a bowl and wash your hands. Alright. These things were on offer. They were £3.9. £3.9. So, chicken thighs. Skin on. Whack them in a bowl and cover them with water. Just a bit of vinegar. You can use lemon juice. Oh shit, that's too much. You can use lemon juice if you want. Just something, you know, acidic, just to attack the shitty bits on the chicken. Right. I tell you, if you like Nando's, you're going to love this. You really are. Okay. First things first. What we need to do is we need to make a marinade. That's what we need to do. We need to make a marinade. So, into my bag of chilies again. I told you I use them a lot. As I said before, I buy these in bulk and freeze them. And they taste perfect. So you can make this as hot and as spicy as you want. I am just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just going to show you how I make mine and what goes in mine. So we need about 10 bird's eye chilies. Yeah, I know it's a lot. And 1 Scotch bonnet. Scotch bonnets are very hot. Don't touch your willy after you've touched some chili. Now these are going to go in the blender, and the reason I'm just cutting them before they go in the blender is because they're frozen. If these were fresh, you could just throw them in the blender, but for some reason when you chop up frozen chilies like this and then you put them in the blender, I think it's too hard for the blend, certainly for my mixer anyway, to chop them up. So I'm just going to chop them up first. Oops. Oh yeah, I was talking about Anthony Blinken, wasn't I? And their reaction in America to this weather balloon that flew over the United States that they tried to make out with some sort of spy satellite from the Chinese. You know, anything to keep the news off what's really important. But he made a statement, and I couldn't quite. It's like, is he trolling people with this statement? You know, it's like. Oops. I'll try and find it in a minute. I'll come to it in a minute. Let me just make the rest of this marinade up. Alright, so I put about 10 bird's eye chilies, about 8 or 10 bird's eye chilies and 1 Scotch bonnet. This is going to be hot. But it's not going to be hot, you know what I mean? It's not going to blow, it's not going to have you sweating, you know, but it's going to be a hot version of Nando's. But like I say, it's better than Nando's. It's Gordo's. So we're going to need some coriander. Hopefully, yeah, I've got some coriander there. We're going to need olive oil. So we're just going to make a marinade up. So we need about 4 or 5 tablespoons of olive oil. There's 1, 2, 3, that's about 5 tablespoons, I reckon. We need a load of salt, about a tablespoon of salt. We need a load of pepper. This grinder's so shit. Put some more of that in. I'm going to need lemon juice. About 4 squirts. And then what I put, you can put in normal paprika if you want. Teaspoon. Now you can put in normal paprika if you want. I like the smoked paprika. I think it's got a bit of. You need about a tablespoon of it. Sorry, teaspoon of it. Okay. Now, if you remember, I know it. Yeah, I've got another jar. Good. Jalapeno, sliced jalapenos from earlier. These aren't frozen, so my blender will sort of blend them up. Put about a couple of tablespoons of that in. Bit of juice. Salt I've put in. Pepper. Okay, good handful of coriander. Need half of that for the thing. So there's your coriander, and I think that's it. I don't think I've forgotten anything. You can. This was originally from Meals by Mitch on TikTok, by the way. I sort of grabbed this recipe from and changed it to my own. You can put some, like a teaspoon of oregano, or oregano if you're from the UK. Just a teaspoon of that in. But I tried it the other day without, because the missus doesn't like oregano, and it was actually lovely. Okay, so that's mixed up. Chicken, drain. Okay, so you drain the chicken. Chicken's nicely washed, and now all you got to do is just smear this all over the chicken. Good little tip from Mitch. You can see here, look. So that's my marinade. That's better than Nando's. Honestly, can kiss my ass. So if you've got any cuts on your hands, obviously be careful. But get all that in there. Give it a good mix. Coat all the chicken. Like that. And that is my Nando's, my Gordo's chicken. And basically all I do is I just put a seal on that and let it marinate. You need it to marinate for at least 4 hours. I generally do it the night before. The longer you marinate it for, the better. I sort of do it the day before. Just put a seal on it and put it in whack it in the fridge. And the only thing that needs to cook, well, I cook mine in the air fryer. I cook mine on about 180 for about 24 minutes in the air fryer. Or you can just whack it in the oven at gas mark 6 for like 45 minutes. I'm actually going to be eating this tomorrow. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to go live tomorrow as well. I'm going to cook this with my chips and whatever. I'm going to show you how lovely it is. And we'll maybe, you know, put a video and edit a video down. This chilli smells incredible. Hello, Ellie. You alright, Els? Are you hoping there's some cheese? Ah. Ah. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, that's so nice. Oh. I was going to tonight. I was also going to cook a noodle, a chili garlic noodle. But I think if I'm going to go live tomorrow, I'm going to do that tomorrow as well. Because I'm going to have this chili with garlic bread and chips. Because I'm a fatty. Have you told us where to come to this place? Yeah. If you can find my flat, you can have a bowl, mate. Do you want some cheese, Els? Oh yes. Oh, I want cheese, Dad. This, mate. What's this? Four. Tastes better next day. Yeah, the chicken will need. It needs like I say, it needs about 4 or 5 hours for that marinade to really get in the chicken. You can have as many chilies as you want. You know, I've just learned that that's the amount of chilies that I like in it, and it's the simplest marinade to make. It really is. And like I say, if you like Nando's, you'll eat this twice a week. I did. I eat at least once a week this chicken because it's so easy to make. You've just got to prep it the day before, that's all. Alright. Let's just try and get somewhere straight. Yeah, I'm going to do those chili garlic noodles tomorrow. This is what, it's going to be another 45 minutes until this is ready. but it smells incredible. Jacket potato with chilli leftovers, says Jason McKenzie. This chilli, I've had it with rice, I've had it with chips, I'll have it with garlic bread tonight and cheese, and chips I'll have with it, but you can have it with jacket potato, you can have it with basically anything. And yeah, I serve everything up with that. That's my homemade chilli jam. I bought, for those of you who know them, Zhang's Oriental Workshop is a friend of mine, Chinny's. And I ordered this chilli jam, but it's really expensive, so we just took the ingredients down and made our own. Sorry, Chin. But yeah, go to Zhang's Oriental Workshop if you want a good chilli jam. You should start your one political party, says Marco Da Vinci. Yeah, I'm not sure what my policies would be. I don't think it would get very far. Yeah, I was going to be looking for Anthony Blinken's statement, wasn't I, over in America? Do you remember this, by the way?
Where we're giving you our facts and conclusions based on solid intelligence. Saddam Hussein has chemical weapons. Our conservative estimate is that Iraq today has a stockpile of between 100 and 500 tons.
For all of you people that's saying, "Oh, you're wrong about Ukraine. This isn't a proxy war about Ukraine. You go and leave it." Do you remember this? You cheering on the war at the moment? Do you remember?
Of chemical weapons agent.
But it turned out, as we discovered later, that a lot of the sourcing that had been attested to by the intelligence community was wrong.
I want to tell you.
Now these people who are just repeating the propaganda and repeating this stuff from intelligence agencies for the last 5 years as if it's true. Do you think they're checking it at all? No, they haven't learned a goddamn thing. All these people that cheered on the Iraq war are the same people now cheering on the war in Ukraine. I've got to find this statement because it's like, wow, you really are a hypocrite, aren't you, mate? You really are a vampire. I did a podcast with a guy called Danny Shearson. He was a major in Afghanistan, actually. He was a major in the American Army. Did 2 tours and a tour of, I think, Kuwait. And he calls people like Anthony Blinken, who's the Secretary of State in America at the moment, he calls them vampires. You know, Tony Blair calls them vampires. They're totally unaware of how they've got no reflection. They're unaware of what they look like to ordinary people around the world. Totally unaware of their own reflection and totally unaware that what they're saying is like, this is everything that you're guilty of. I can't even find it now. Come on, where are you? I don't think he's deleted it. He was basically saying how the countries that invade and overturn other democracies around the world are always the ones that also flout regulations with regards to, they're also the most corrupt, and they're also the ones that you know, try and oust other people in coups and all that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, yes, mate. And your country's the worst, the biggest culprit in history for that. But obviously, no reflection. I can't find it now, I'm sorry. It is on my other phone, but obviously that's recording right now, so. Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the Syria. The stuff going on in Turkey and Syria. That's awful. The earthquake over there. They're saying over 10,000 people have been killed now in this earthquake. Have you seen the devastation? It looks like it's been flattened by a nuclear weapon or something, these homes. It's incredible. Al Hassan says, I don't at all agree with Putin, an ex-KGB dictator. KGB, okay, he's ex-KGB. I think you're calling him a dictator who is ex-KGB. What don't you agree with him on? You say you don't agree with him at all. Well, one of the things he says is that NATO expansion is what's caused this war. You don't agree with that? Because then I disagree with you. You know, just disagreeing with somebody because they're something and you don't agree with them at all, that's like... You need to understand this isn't Putin's war. This is a red line for Russia and the Russians. It's not Putin. It's not Putin's madman, and Putin is a madman. I get you don't agree with him. I get you think he's a dictator. I get you don't think he's a nice guy. I don't think he's a nice guy either. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. Turkey had a disagreement with NATO last week, says Jason McKenzie. They did, didn't they? Didn't Blinken say Turkey will regret that? Didn't Blinken say that? Didn't Blinken come out and say Turkey will regret that? Because they disagreed with NATO. And they had that, there was that vote, wasn't there? In the UN. And Turkey was the only member of NATO that abstained. Excuse me. Oh, thanks, Jarvis. Jarvis Bonson's just said, I thought the same about Gordon at one point until you realise he's actually right. He's speaking truth. Thank you, Jarvis. I appreciate that. I remember we had a disagreement, but yeah, disagreeing with people isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's the way we get to the truth. And the truth doesn't mind inquiry, you know? The truth is fine. Truth is like, yeah, come on, question me. I want to show you I'm the truth. Fake news, that doesn't like being questioned. That doesn't like inquiry. Fake news doesn't. People who have got things to hide don't like being questioned on things. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I try and shine a light on. And something that people need to realise as well, just because somebody disagrees with you politically on certain things, that doesn't mean they're your enemy. Just because people disagree with you on Ukraine, that doesn't mean your enemy. Doesn't mean they're your enemy. What actually is most likely, in my experience, is they are a victim of propaganda. They are a victim of the news networks misinforming them. They're a victim, and they need to be treated as such. You know, you need to explain to them, no, I'm sorry, you're a victim in this. And that is much more persuasive, and it's much more of a persuasive way to talk to people who have the opposite view to you than to just say, oh, you're stupid, or I don't agree with you on anything, you're wrong on everything, and that sort of thing, and attack the person instead. And I've been guilty of that many times in the past. But I'm starting to realise now people are actually victims in all this. You know, people who believe other things to you, they're victims. And that doesn't mean that everything that I have said is true in the past. I know it's not. I know I've been wrong about things, and afterwards I've said, yeah, I was wrong about that, I'm very sorry. But at least I try and get to the truth. I do not get that impression from our media at all, that they are trying to get to the truth, not even close. All they're doing is protecting power, privilege and property. And they're doing it with propaganda. All the P's. What the fuck happened to your cooker? It's about 15 years old. I reckon I could get that off with a chisel. Yeah, it's had lots of use, that whole person. Go vegan then. I'm cooking chili, mate. I'm not ready to go vegan yet. Although, one of the things I wanted to try was these chili garlic noodles. How time? Oh, I've got half an hour. Yeah. It's not long enough. I'll do them tomorrow. I'm going to do chili garlic noodles to go with my Gordo's chicken tomorrow. That's what I'm going to make with it. So, yeah. Same time tomorrow, about 5 o'clock. I will be cooking that chicken that's marinating in the fridge with my chili garlic noodles. That is a vegetarian meal. No, not with the chicken, obviously, but the chili garlic noodles, I think it's the best meal I cook. I think it's the tastiest meal, and it's so cheap, and it's so yummy, and it's so, it's beautiful. Just with a fried egg on top. You don't have to have the egg, but yeah, I'll show you how to do that tomorrow. If we all join NATO, aren't we communist with one idea and a way? Yeah, I see your thinking, user 815. Well, it's interesting that Putin asked to join NATO, didn't he? Do you remember? Because there's no need for NATO, right? NATO was born from the Cold War. The reason for NATO was to stop Soviet expansion. Well, the Soviet Union fell in 1990. After that, there was no need for NATO. None. But it carried on expanding anyway. And when Bush first came to power, remember 9/11, the first voice he heard, the first leader to phone Bush and say, is there anything I can do to help after 9/11, was Putin. If you remember, Putin went to Camp David with George Bush. They were really quite friendly in the early 2000s. And Putin actually asked to join NATO. And was given laughed at almost. Oh fuck, that's gone down the bottom. Battery now. Yeah, he was almost laughed at. But yeah, there was no need for NATO. None. It's sort of what it morphed into was, it started out as obviously to stop the Soviet Union expansion and a Cold War thing. But then after the fall of the Berlin Wall, what it became was sort of like an aggressive alliance which was protecting the flow of energy and oil and gas and what have you. And I was just reading, actually, just before I came on air, there's a great journalist called Seymour Hersh. You've probably heard of him. He's won Pulitzers, he's won Pulitzer Prizes, etc. He's got a major scoop in that he's proved that it's the Americans that blew up Nord Stream pipeline. Now, I mean, everybody knew it was the Americans that blew up Nord Stream pipeline anyway, but there's an article that he says, well, the title of it is how America blew up Nord Stream. It's on his Substack, so I've got to go and read it afterwards. But yeah, that is an act of global terrorism. That blowing up of a Nord Stream pipeline, that is a piece of critical infrastructure that is going to leave Europeans this winter cold as a result. It's just, without that gas coming from Russia, it's going to be extremely difficult for Europe to replace it. And America blew it up. So you could say by proxy, America have killed Europeans as a result of that this winter. You know? I'll have to go and read it afterwards and see what. But it's Cy Hersh, and he's a world-renowned journalist. So it's not going to be hearsay. It's going to be based on facts and people giving evidence to him. Are you sure, say Circle? Like I say, I'll have to go and read that article, but it's Cy Hersh, it's on his Substack, and it's the first article he's written on it. He's brilliant, the guy is. He's brilliant. He was, you know, a lot of information about the Seth Rich stuff came from him. He's won a Pulitzer Prize. He's like Chris Hedges, you know, the guy's amazing. And he says he's got the proof that it was America that blew up Nord Stream. Why would Russia blow up their own pipeline? It makes no sense. Who hates Nord Stream? America, right? Who's been sanctioning companies that are building Nord Stream? America, right? Who said they would put an end to Nord Stream somehow if it became operational? America, right? Who blew up Nord Stream? Russia! They blew up you don't key your own car. It's nonsense. You right there, Lily. You can't wait for this chili, can you, mate? My dog, she's always, around this time, she starts floating around, don't you, mate? Because you know I'm going to get the cheese out to put on top of this. I like to melt some cheese on top of it. And, yeah. It's one of your favourites, isn't it, mate? So please. Right. If you're in the chat, by the way, one of the things that I would suggest if money's tight and you want to save money on stuff, get an air fryer. I know it's an expense up front, but you will save, in a year, you will save double the amount you outlaid on the air fryer just in cooking oil. I promise. And it's so much healthier. And the way you can cook things, you know, you just get used to it. These little chips, I mean, I make my own chips from potatoes, but I haven't got time. But these little French fries from Morrison's, just whack them in the air fryer. Get some cooking oil in a spray thing. And now literally go in there, 200 degrees. 200 degrees, 15 minutes they will take. The chilli will take another 25 minutes, so I'm going to hang off from pressing that on for 10 minutes. Get an oven air fryer, not a basket. I love I've got a dual. I got one of those dual. There's two of them. It's perfect for me because I can cook these things. I mean, you can do in the ovens as well, but I just love this one. I don't know how good the ovens are. Get a stainless steel one, not Teflon coated. Dangerous fumes. I've never had dangerous fumes come off it. I see your point there. Hiding Johnson, okay, since you're from the west of EU, England or around those countries, what are your ideas of USA? I haven't got a great opinion of... Well, no, America's lovely, and the Americans are lovely. But those unfortunate elements within it that run the country, not so good. The oven version has a rotisserie. Yeah, I've seen those. I nearly got one of those. But yeah, I went with this ninja thing. Alright. This is something I like to have in mind. I just get these and sprinkle some chips on, chips, sprinkle some cheese on, and just do them in the air fryer 5 minutes, and they're gorgeous. And this is where my dog starts losing her shit because she knows I'm about to get the cheese out. You know, don't you, Alice? You know, don't you? What's up, mate? Hmm? What's up? What else was I going to talk to you about today? Oh yeah, the earthquake in Syria and Turkey. Yeah, that's really interesting. What somebody said in the chat about Blinken, you know, him threatening that Turkey. It's awful. Got James Cleverly on Twitter saying, yeah, we've done this and that for Turkey, and we've mobilised the white helmets in Syria. It's like, if you want to help Syria, drop the sanctions. There's a United Nations specialist on the effects of sanctions that came back from Syria and was horrified as to what the sanctions are doing to that country. And it's the sanctions that are killing people. Yeah, there's loads of people that have been killed by the earthquake, but if you want to help them, drop the sanctions. This is another one of those situations that was like Ukraine. It's like, oh, Assad is a bad dictator and he's gassed his people. It's like, come on. I'm not saying Assad is a good person. I'm not. Again. But it's not as simple as that. Do a Google search for Operation Timber Sycamore and you'll quickly realise why Syria is in the predicament it's in. And it's not because Assad gassed his own people. There you go, mate. Okay, we'll go 5. I could have really tried to impress you tonight and made my own naan bread, couldn't I? I could have made my own naan. Because, yeah, I do that now. Alright. We're going to go number 1, 200 degrees, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Number 2, 200 degrees, 15 minutes. Sync. Start. Boom. Shall we see how it's doing? That's so nice. That really is so nice. Probably a little bit too much chili powder, if I'm honest. Overdid it on the chili powder. Oh my. And there's like £5 worth of mince in there. I'm talking not weight, I'm talking price. You know, 50p worth of tomatoes, 50p kidney beans. Oh crap, the mushrooms. Crap, forgot to put the mushrooms in. How long will they cook if I just put them in there? Yeah, they're not necessarily served, but they're really nice. I could fry them, couldn't I, and add them separate. If I don't use them, they're not going to get used, that's the thing. I could just fry them. Oh shit now. I could just fry them, and then I'll add them in. I knew I forgot something. I knew I forgot something. Yeah, you usually want to put this in like around about, probably before the meat goes in, to be honest, or just after. But yeah. I hate wasting food, and it'd go to waste if I didn't use it. The media doesn't show anything the Russians did good, only the bad, says Al-Hassan. If you seriously think Russia are just out of control, go and watch some footage of the first 48 hours of Desert Storm and Iraq. They're saying, I heard a statistic that around 8,000 or 7,000, around 7,000 civilians have been killed in Ukraine, right? 7,000. I want you to try and imagine. Try and open your mind that Russia has shown restraint, right? And this is not being a mere apology as in for Putin or anything. I'm just saying, listen, here are the facts. I saw a figure saying 7,000 civilians in Ukraine had died in this fight, in the war, and that's terrible. 8,000 died in the first 2 months of the Iraq invasion. It took nearly a year for Ukraine to get to that figure. So this is a country with nuclear weapons and a huge arsenal that could literally wipe out Ukraine like that. Is showing restraint. You could give Zelensky all the weapons, you could give him photon torpedoes and starships, and he still wouldn't beat them. Giving them more money is not going, all it's going to do is extend this war so more people die. And try and think of like the amount of people that have died on both sides as well. There was a statistic in the BBC that suggested between 12 and 20,000 Russian, soldiers have died. Between 12 and 20,000. Well, Ursula von der Leyen of the EU let it slip in November, I think it was. She let it slip in November that 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers had died. 100,000. And that was in November. More have died, obviously, since then. So, that's a 5-to-1. And if you think in war, however many, in any war, however many people are killed, there's 4 to 5 times that injured and out of duty. Well, that means there's like 500,000 Ukrainians. Who, if you could keep sending them all these tanks and weapons, who's going to use them? They're dragging 16-year-olds from the street to conscript them for this war. I've seen the videos on Telegram, it's awful. 60-year-old men, they're grabbing them from outside churches and stuff to try and get them you know, to conscript them for the army to fight the Russians. Ukraine are losing this, and they were always going to lose it. NATO are willing to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian, and this is not me being hyperbolic. They admit it, the Ukrainians are. Lindsey Graham, the Americans, Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, they're on tape saying, yeah, we like this, we like the structure of this. As long as we keep selling them weapons, they're willing to fight to the last Ukrainian. It's a proxy war. It's a proxy war between Russia and NATO expansion. What do you suggest, says Cirque? Peace. I suggest they have peace. And isn't it funny, well, when anybody talks about peace, or you know, we found out about, who was it that, I think it was Merkel that came out, and we found out that Boris Johnson scuppered any peace deal back in February or March last year, and it was the Americans that allegedly got put him up to that. But we're finding out now that Naftali Bennett, the Israeli Prime Minister, the outgoing Israeli Prime Minister is Netanyahu now, but when he was Prime Minister last year, he was brokering a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, and the West again put the kibosh on it. It was America and the UK that stopped this peace. Because they're profiting from this war. War's good for business, baby. As long as your people aren't being killed, who cares about Ukrainians? That's the way they think. All right. Trump is going to be the only one who will broker peace. No, he won't, David. No, he won't. Trump won't broker anything. If you think Trump is such a good guy, why didn't he pardon Assange? Why didn't he pardon Julian Assange? Remember, this is a man who, on the campaign trail, I love WikiLeaks, do you remember? I love WikiLeaks. Do you remember? And then as soon as he was president, he was asked, I don't know anything about WikiLeaks, it's not my thing. He's not a good guy, and he's not going to broker peace. The people of Ukraine were also surprised with the military draft by Zelensky. I don't even think they're doing a draft now, like I say. I've seen video of them dragging like 16-year-old kids and 65-year-old men from their homes into the Ukrainian army, or the meat grinder as I call it. I wish you could taste this, guys. I really do. I wish I could. I wish I could give you all a sample. This is so nice. It really is. This is why you've got to simmer it a lot, because the spices can be really powerful, you know, the chili and what have you. But once it's been going on 45 minutes, 2 hours, all the spices start to mingle and the taste comes together. It's beautiful, it really is. Smell it else, okay? We're going to fish cheese. Pop. Oh, don't mind if I do. I opened the fridge and the beer went, do you want to drink me? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Thanks, man. Put that coriander in at the end. Time to clean kitchen, yeah, I'll be doing that in a bit. Has the dog had her main dinner? You've still got some left in your bowl, haven't you? She's waiting for the chili, mate. She knows what's coming, that's the thing. Assange has never been convicted, so can't be pardoned. That's not right, mate. Says no, you can pardon somebody preemptively. you remember Nixon pardoned, I think didn't Ford pardon somebody preemptively or something like that? Yeah, you can pardon people preemptively. And remember, it's the Justice Department that are going after him. He has, they've charged him over in America, so they could drop the charges or pardon him from those crimes, but he didn't. So they can pardon him. They can pardon anybody they want, and preemptively if they so wish. Assange is not related to Trump, David. Assange isn't related to Trump. If he was related to Trump, yeah, why didn't Trump pardon him? San Miguel. Yeah, it's horrible, I know, but there's no good guys in politics. There's none. There's none. Look what happened to the good guys in politics. I mean, even Corbyn, who with lots of people in the chat were saying he's a good guy, and I think he's a good guy too. He wouldn't throw a punch. A good guy isn't enough. You need somebody who's going to fight, and he capitulated against that smear. I'm sorry, he really did. He could have faced it head on for what it was, and he played into it instead. That's my opinion of him anyway. Do you ever see Etienne TikTok? He said it's anti-Semitic to say free Palestine. I saw this actually on ITV. I saw something familiar where they said somebody had written anti-Semitic slogans on somebody's building, and what they'd written was free Palestine. Palestinians are Semites. How can saying free Palestine, free Palestinians who are Semitic, who are under a military occupation and apartheid by a nuclear power, how can you say free those Semites is anti-Semitic? How? Just square that circle for me. I mean, isn't that proof right there that, the whole argument is false and fake and has been bastardised and it's a trick all along? Isn't that proof that what you've been trying to say is just total bollocks? Right there. How can it be anti-Semitic to stand up for Palestinians when Palestinians are Semites? How? Terry C says he's a whistleblower, that shouldn't be a crime. Who's Assange? Assange isn't a whistleblower. Assange is a journalist, and that isn't a crime. He's a journalist and publisher. And that's protected by the First Amendment in America, actually. He doesn't do anything that the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Guardian and the Der Spiegel and Le Monde, he doesn't do anything that they don't do, but he just does it better than them all. All right. That needs another minute or two. Alright. Alright. Honestly, they're alright. They're not far off. If you do them like that, they're not far off like McDonald's fries, I've got to be honest. this is done. There are, usually I get about 11, 12 portions in there. The whole thing, mushrooms, the lot, came to about 11, 12 pounds. It's £1 a portion. And there's 12 meals there, and I'll have one tonight, Ellie will have one, and I'll put the rest in the freezer, and whenever I want them, then I can take them out and microwave, like 6 or 7 minutes. Beautiful. Ah, coriander! Oh! And there you go. Want the rest of this, mate? Yeah. And there you go, fellas. That's it. Ladies and gents, fellas. We're done for the day. I think I got through everything I wanted to talk about as well. Yeah, the other thing is I'm going down to London the weekend for the Assange Night Carnival on the 11th. Details of that is on my Twitter page. Yeah, and hopefully we can raise more awareness about Assange's plight, and hopefully pretty soon he's going to be free. We shall see. But things are looking hopeful. And I've been looking more hopeful over the last few months, so hopefully we can keep it heading in that direction. Alright, thank you very much for everybody for tuning in. As you can see, this is that's what it is, and I got 10 of them for about 10 quid, and some garlic bread, and some chips. Beautiful. Alright, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll cook the Gordo's chicken. You can see how lovely that is. Thank you very much for joining me. Please go through to my website, gordondimmack.com, sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get a notification of when I go live. Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. Switch off the mainstream media. They're lying to you about everything. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Alright, take care, everybody. I'm going to go enjoy my dinner now. Peace.